we're going to jump back to something I did last week. You guys will probably remember last week I called an audible. I said I was going to teach hit stun and block stun in a future episode. And then I was like, what the hell? I'll teach hit stun, block stun right now. Well, the reason why I wanted to teach it later on, because it's actually very important for this conversation here. So I'm going to reiterate this. And I apologize if this is repeat information from last week, but it's very important to remember. So I'm going to do this a little bit quicker. If you want more details on hit stun and block stun, last episode will have that a little bit more. So you can go back and watch over there. But remembering what hit stun and block stun are, whenever a move connects on an opponent, whenever the active frame touches the hurt box of the opponent, whether they are blocking or not, so if they get hit or if they're blocking a move, they get stuck. They get locked into a forced animation that they have to complete before they can move again. So getting hit leads to hit stun. Blocking an attack leads to block stun. Pretty clear, pretty obvious kind of situation here. But again, let me just show you this an example here in the game so you can see what that looks like. And one other thing that I want to mention here too is that you'll also notice one other thing too. Whenever I whiff an attack, the animation goes pretty quickly, pretty smoothly. You know, she kicks her leg and the leg comes back down. But you notice when I hit the opponent, you can kind of see that frame that hits the opponent a little bit longer. Like the frame where her leg is completely stretched out, you can barely see right now. In fact, I'm going to turn off the hitboxes here so you can see the animation a little more clearly here. But you see the frame where the leg is actually sticking straight out goes pretty fast. But when I hit the opponent with it, it kind of freezes for a brief second. So there's a few extra frames of freezing where the game actually freezes. This was something they added to the original Street Fighter 2 to give moves more of an oomph. Like when you actually see moves go pow and it freezes on that frame a little bit when it hits somebody, it creates a little more of an impact feel. So it's kind of cool that way. So like if I swing this heavy punch, she just swings right away through. But if I punch you with it, it freezes on the frame where the punch connects to the opponent. So there are a few extra added frames. On top of that, however, there is something called hit stun and block stun on those moves. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to slow it back down to 0.05 and I'm going to animate the heavy punch in. Okay, she's about to punch. Now watch the Lucia that gets punched here. Pow! So now Lucia's getting punched and you'll notice there the shake. These are the freeze. This is the freeze portion of the move connecting because you can see her shaking a little bit. Now what's going to happen is she's going to start sliding backwards. Oh, there we go. You see her head going back and it's leaning back and there you go. Is that her mouth? No, that's just, I thought those were teeth. That's just actually light reflecting off her brow. But she's getting punched and now she's going through this hit stun animation. She is being hit by this move and she is reeling back. And yes, she is stuck in this hit stun animation and there is nothing she can do now. There is literally nothing she can do until the hit stun animation finishes. Now she's free to move, even though it doesn't look like she's free to move. A lot of 3D games have completion animations that you can just skip. She's actually free to move at this point in time. Her hit stun is over. But during that entire time in which she was reeling back, she was stuck in hit stun. So there was basically nothing she could do and move for that time. And now I'm going to switch her to guarding. And you'll see that it's going to be the exact same thing when you guard an attack. Here we go. So I'm going to do this again. Hit this heavy punch button and pow. Here we go again. The shake. Here's the freeze. Here's the extra emphasis freeze, which is known as hit stop and block stop. But again, don't worry about that. Those are not terms that you'll ever hear people talk about. It's not that important. It comes up very rarely. But here we go. So she's shaking, and now here we go. We are in block stun. You see her sliding back, and she is in this very defensive position where she's blocking. And like I said, during this time, she can't move. She can't do anything until finally that block stun ends. So once that block stun ends, she is able to move again. So that's what hit stun and block stun are. Very important concepts to understand. So now that I've shown you that visually, keep that in mind. When a move connects, the opponent's either stuck in block stun in a defensive position or stuck in hit stun where they're going and getting knocked back. One of the toughest things about modern fighting games, however, is that these days, hit stun and block stun are very arbitrary. In order to more accurately balance fighting games, most fighting games these days have arbitrary hit stun and block stun on a lot of moves. I point this out because older games such as Street Fighter II Hyper Fighting, from way back in 1990, whatever, 1994, 95, whatever it was, 1992 actually, or 93, games had the same hit stun and block stun for most things. So whatever the hit stun length was, the block stun was the exact same length. Again, this is not a convention in modern fighting games. Most modern fighting games now, moves that hit you will cause a different length hit stun and block stun. And again, those will be in frames. Those are calculated in frames. Now, what you'll notice, something interesting again, is, we're sitting here talking about hit stun and block stun, all this stuff, and you're like, oh my God, here's some more frame lengths. How many hit stun frames, how many block stun frames does this move cause? If you look at the frame data here, there's hit stun and block stun aren't listed at all. Like, they're not even listed. What that means is that they're not important. You don't care. You don't have to care. I'm only telling you about this again so that you can understand some concepts that are going to be coming up very, very soon. So again, hit stun and block stun are going to vary in different numbers. There's no magical math formula for it. Hit stun is not going to be exactly 3 frames shorter than block stun, etc., etc. It's just arbitrary numbers when with what the developer felt like making that move do. We are going to revisit frame advantage from the last episode. I talked about frame advantage and how you want to be an advantage as much as possible. Land a jump attack, and then you land, and the opponent is stuck in that block stun, and you're able to move forward and do whatever you want for like 10 frames, and the opponent can't do anything. You want to put yourself in advantage as much as possible. Now, you kind of have an understanding of what I mean by advantage. What I mean by advantage is that you will end your attack before they end their block stun or hit stun. You will be free to move before the opponent can. And so this is what advantage is all about. Again, frames are a measurement of time. You want to have more time in which you can move and the opponent can't. It's that simple. It's that simple. And so when a move connects on an opponent, whether it's a block or a hit, they're stuck in that stun, in that hit or block stun, and you are stuck in your follow-through. You are now stuck in your recovery frames and whatever active frames are left. Like I said, there's 3 active frames. So if you hit on the first active frame, you still have to go through the next 2 active frames. You still have to finish those 2 active frames. They just lose their ability to hit. Most moves behave this way in fighting games because otherwise, if all 3 active frames hit, a standing heavy punch would be a 3-hit combo. It would go pow, 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 3 frames in a row. So what they've done is that whenever a move hits, it loses all active hit boxes for the rest of the move, but those active frames still exist. So keep that in mind. So when I hit them with that first active frames, the next two active frames have to happen. They just can't hit anymore. And then I go into the rest of the recovery. So I am stuck in recovery animation. So we will recover at different times. And because we recover at different times, that will create frame advantage or disadvantage. That is what causes frame advantage or disadvantage, is who's ever recovering first. And to give you guys this example, I have created something here that I think is pretty slick. I'm actually pretty happy about this. I have created a frame data chart here in Microsoft Excel. So if you look over here, once again, I'm going to go back to the slides really quick. Go back to the slides, and we're going to go back to the frame data here for Lucia. 436, 5310, 8222, etc., etc. So let's go back to this spreadsheet over here. So if I go back to the spreadsheet, I have recreated this in the spreadsheet. You will see here 4 startup frames. This one is an overlap. You can't really see it on the screen, unfortunately. I did make it a darker red. It's a different red than, oops, this is not supposed to be that color. This is supposed to be a darker red than this red over here. You can kind of barely tell, but I use this darker red to represent the overlap frame here. So what you'll see here is this is the startup frames. The 4 startup frames on that light punch, like I said, was 436. And here's the light punch's 3 active frames. And then here are the 6 recovery frames of the standing light punch. Do not ask how I came up with these block stun and hit stun lengths. I just used math and I calculated them. Again, this is not important. You don't need to know what the block stun or hit stun lengths are. You really don't care. But what you do care about, however, is when you do connect with the opponent, who has frame advantage? Who has the advantage now in this situation? And to calculate that, I can show you visually what is happening here. Light punch causes, if you look, 11 frames of block stun. If you hit someone with standing light punch, it causes 13 frames of hit stun. Again, different amounts. And you can see every move that I've listed here, it's just a different amount. It's arbitrary. These hit stuns and block stuns are all arbitrary. It's just however long it needs to be. So what I'm going to take now is take the hit stun here. This is the hit stun length. And what I'm going to do is I am going to drop it right here and show you what happens when you hit the opponent on the first active frame. Boom. I have now thrown the hit stun over here. And you can see the hit stun will last this long up to the 16th frame. But my move, after I hit, I've only got 2 more active frames to go through, 6 more recovery frames to go through, and here on frame 13, I can do whatever I want. So after I've hit the opponent, I have 4 frames, and again, remember, frames are just time. I have 4 frames where I can move before my opponent can. They are stuck in hit stun, and I have recovered for 4 frames. I have a 4 frame advantage over my opponent if I hit them with standing light punch. Okay? That's how you want to see that. Now, what if they block the move? The block stun is a little bit shorter than hit stun, so I'm going to drop block stun in over here right now. So here's the block stun now, is in this spot over here. And you're going to see, because the block stun is shorter than hit stun, it still causes the opponent to block longer than my move will take to recover. But because block stun is shorter, I only have a 2-frame advantage now after they block my light punch. I can move for only 2 frames before they can. But again, as I mentioned, in fighting games, 2 frames, even though each frame is 1/60th of a second, 2 frames is a big deal. And the reason why it's a big deal is because as long as you have frame advantage, it's a big deal. And we'll figure out why that is in the next episode. But I just want you to be able to picture this visually. Picture understanding what is happening with frame advantage visually. Let's do another example here. Let's look at standing medium punch. Okay, standing medium punch. If I hit the opponent with a standing medium punch on this first active frame, look at this sucker. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frames in which I can move before the opponent. Standing medium punch gives me 7 frames in which I can do whatever the heck I want after I hit them. The opponent is going to be reeling for 7 frames, and I can just walk around, I can hit buttons, I can do whatever the heck I want for 7 entire frames. So that's really powerful because, like I said, the bigger the advantage, the better. You know, on block, however, how far is it going to give me on block? On block, you can see right here, 3 frames. I get 3 frames of advantage right here. Only 3 frame advantage, not 7, 3 frames of advantage. But again, any amount of frames in which you have an advantage is a big deal in fighting games. This is very important. So 3 frames of advantage here on the standing medium punch. And again, I'm just showing you guys this to give you an explanation of exactly how this works. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to standing, let's just do standing heavy punch. Let's do standing heavy punch. If I hit you with standing heavy punch on my first active frame, again, this is the overlap frame. And again, you'll find out very quickly why there is this overlap frame. It's very confusing that this is the modern nomenclature for frame data, but you'll see why this happens in just a second, very, very quickly. But if I put this hit stun over here, you'll see that the guy will reel for this many frames. It's 26 frames of hit stun over here. So they're going to reel for 26 frames, and after my move recovers, you'll see I'll have a 2-frame advantage here. I'll have a 2-frame advantage in which I can move before my opponent. Now, what happens if they block? What happens if they block? Look at this. This is the first time we've seen this in all of these examples that I've given. You hit them here, the block stun only lasts this long. Guess what? This time the opponent recovers out of their block stun before I finish my recovery of my move. This is the first example we've seen of frame disadvantage. Now, if the opponent blocks my heavy punch, they have 2 frames that they can move before me. So now they are a happy camper. They are in a position where now they have the big deal +2. It's -2 for you. So this is -2 for Lucia. But on the other side, it's +2 for the enemy. So that's how you want to see it. Whatever you are plus, the opponent is the exact same thing minus on their end. Whatever you are minus, the opponent is plus the exact same thing. So if I hit the opponent, I have +2. I can move for 2 frames before the opponent. If I get it blocked, I am at -2. And so the opponent can now move 2 frames ahead of me. But again, this is your visual example of how the math is calculated with hit stun and block stun. And this is something that's very important that I need to make sure people understand, okay? This is a video game. This is a program. And while this sounds really silly to say, I'm saying this because fighting games are precise and exact. When you play fighting games, things happen that seem very, very weird. A lot of times things will happen, you're like, why did that happen? And it feels like magic. But the thing about it is, it's actually the exact opposite. Almost everything is repeatable in fighting games. And so when you look at this frame data here, when I show you this hit stun, the hit stun and the block stun are not going to change. When the standing heavy punch hits the opponent, it's not going to change. So if I hit someone with standing heavy punch on my first active frame, I'm always going to be +2. This is law. Okay, if I hit the opponent with my first active frame, this is law. I will be +2. There is no magic on this. It's not going to be +7 for no reason. It's not going to be -8 for no reason. If I hit you, if you block it, I will always be -2. It's not going to change for no reason. Fighting games are a science. They're exact. They're a program. They can only do what they're scripted to do. Now, there are some things that will change it. You notice I have been adding the caveat of hitting on the first active frame. But again, every active frame can hit. And this goes into a more obtuse concept called meaties. And I don't really want to go delving too far into it. But because active frames can hit, any active frames can hit, there are situations in which you can force hitting on a later active frame. So it doesn't have to hit on this frame. Let's say they're getting up from the floor and they're invincible, and you hit your medium punch before they get up, and they get up, and they get up into this active frame. That means this hit stun, which is always going to be 20 frames of length, now instead of starting on this frame, starts on this frame because you landed the button meaty. And when you land the button meaty, now all of a sudden my frame advantage is not 7 anymore. My frame advantage is 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? But that's because the hit stun is always going to be the same length. Always going to be the same length. So if you hit on a later active, if you hit 2 active frames later, then your hit stun, then your frame advantage gets increased by 2. It's that simple. But again, I'm going to stop right there because now erase meaties from your mind. Don't worry about it. Just assume everything hits on its first active frame for this lesson. But I wanted to bring that up because people are going to wonder why sometimes a move will be safe on block, sometimes it's punishable on block, and this is why, is because you are hitting on later active frames. So there you go. Okay, so that is this example here, but I want to keep going with this a little bit. I actually want to keep going with this a little bit. Let's come back to this medium punch over here. Let's come back to this medium punch over here. And I'm going to hit you. And I have 7 frames that I can do anything that I want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frames. Anything that I want to do. I'm going to come down here now and let's take a look at a standing medium kick. This is an interesting move. Let's look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 active frames. Interesting. Interesting. So if I hit you with the standing medium punch and I have 7 frames in which I can move before you can, what if I decide in my first frame that I am available to move to hit standing medium kick? Oh, look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 active frames. What's happening over here? My opponent is still in hit stun. So they are still reeling. In fact, it's the last frame of their hit stun, but it's still hit stun. Last frame of hit stun. And now I put this move here, guess what? My first active frame is hitting them on their last frame of hit stun. This is a combo. Now we have a combo. When you see someone be able to do 2 moves in a row and it hits you and you can't block and it's a combo, this is why. Because the second move that you have done hits you before your hit stun ended. And now if we go to standing medium kick, here's the hit stun. So now that I've hit you on this frame, whatever hit stun was left over from the previous move gets erased by the new move that hits you. So now we have all this more hit stun from the standing medium kick that scrolls off all the way over here to this side like this. So if we come back over here and look at standing medium kick, we'll notice that standing medium kick, when you hit somebody, is +3 on hit. Well, guess what? When I hit somebody in a combo with standing medium kick, it's still going to be +3 on hit because it doesn't change. Hit stuns do not add up. Hit stuns do not mix with each other. They overwrite each other. Block stuns overwrite each other. Hit stuns overwrite each other. So even if there were more frames of hit stun, by hitting them right there, I erase it and I replace it completely with now standing medium kick's hit stun. And that's the way that works. Now, one last example here. 7 frames of advantage that I have in this situation. Let's look at standing heavy punch. Yes, they do not stack. Again, yeah, just to reiterate, they do not stack, they do not add up. The hit stuns and block stuns do not add up. They overwrite each other. Very important to understand. Now, let's look at heavy punch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 startup frames. 8 startup frames. Interesting. What happens if I hit the opponent with stand medium punch and then I try to do heavy punch? On the very first frame, I am free to move on this frame here, which my move has completed. Let's do the same calculation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Their hit stun ended. Their hit stun has ended. My attack hits. But guess what? My opponent has recovered from their hit stun. Yes, even by just 1 frame, but they are free to do anything they want to now, including block. Now they can block. So they are blocking this attack here. This is not going to hit fast enough. This is not a combo. You cannot combo an opponent by doing medium punch into heavy punch. This is not a standard Lucia combo. So this illustrates why it is not a combo and why other things are combos. Because when you hit someone, they get put into a fixed amount of hit stun, and if your moves just aren't fast enough to keep hitting them out of that hit stun, you will not get your combo. And hopefully this is a really interesting way to help illustrate exactly what frame advantage is on hit and on block. And you're starting to see right now that these numbers are very important, okay? Your advantage or disadvantage on hit and block are going to tell you a lot about what is possible, on what is capable, and what situation you're in. And the reason why I made it such a big point that all situations are repeatable is that means when you are playing a fighting game, if you block a certain attack and it happened to be the opponent's frame advantage and you try to counterattack and they hit you first because they have advantage, that will be the situation every single time you block that attack. Every single time you block that attack. So, It stops becoming about memorizing numbers. It starts about being able to memorize moves and what the situation those moves leave you in. That is the most important thing. The numbers do not matter. It is the actual situation that you are left in. The numbers just confirm and tell you scientifically what the situation is that you can easily deduce yourself without numbers. You know, if you do a button into another button and it combos, you don't need to know the numbers. You just know that this combos. And so you don't care about the numbers. But those numbers are there as a means to confirm and to add research and just to speed everything up so you don't have to go to training mode and test everything. You can just figure it out very quickly by looking at a frame data chart. You know what? Just to add into this whole entire thing, I talked about combos. Let me also add in one more thing about doing block strings, because in this example that I showed with the medium punch and the heavy punch, obviously the opponent is going to be able to block that attack. But just like combos, there is a similar concept called block strings, in which once your opponent starts blocking attack, the next move attacks fast enough that the opponent has to block that as well. So let's go back to this medium punch example. I'm just going to keep using this medium punch example here. Everybody say hello to Jasmine. Mwah. If you look at this example here, the block stun here is going to be here. I'm going to have a 3-frame advantage in this situation over here. I put it down? I did not put this down. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let me, on the fly, add this move to the spreadsheet here so you can see how awesome my spreadsheet is, because I am super proud of this spreadsheet here. I'm going to add crouching light punch to this spreadsheet on the fly, just so you can see how awesome my spreadsheet is, okay? I just wanted to show you guys how really, really cool this is. Now, if we look at the frame data for crouching light punch, I gotta look that up real quick. Lucia's crouching light punch frame data is 327. That is the frame data for Lucia's crouching light punch. 327. So we've got a startup frame, and then the last startup frame is the frame that they share. And then there's going to be an active frame, 2 active frames total. And then there's going to be 7 recovery frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 recovery frames. This is what her crouching light punch looks like. Now, on top of that, on block, it is +2. And on hit, it is +3. So on block, it is +1. And on hit, it is +3, did I say? +3. Oh, +2 and +3. So here you go. On block, it is +2. On hit, it is +3. Here you go. This is her crouching light punch. So now I'm just going to take these frames and drop them over here. So this is now the data of Lucia's crouching light punch in Street Fighter V. Okay? The reason why I want to show you this one is because on standing medium punch here, after they block this attack, I have 3 frames that I can move before the opponent can. 3 frames that this is that the opponent can move. My crouching light punch, hey, look at that, has a startup of 3. So if I drop this over here and I do crouching light punch the first frame that I can after my opponent blocks my standing medium punch, you'll notice that the 3 startup frames fit right in that 3 frame of advantage. So while the opponent is in the middle of their block stun, they get hit again. They get hit again right here. And that means they can't do anything between the two attacks. When they block the first one and you do the second one, they have to block the second one. This is a block string. Moves that continue to connect on an opponent so that their block string never runs out is a block string. And again, here's more block stun over here. I'm going to take that and overwrite the previous block string, and now they have to block this here. If Lucia had a move that hit in 2 frames, she could keep you locked in block string even longer if it could reach the opponent. But she does not have one, so the opponent will be able to escape at this point in time after blocking this. But the thing about it is, Lucia still has 2 frames of advantage over here, so she still has 2 frames of advantage over you. That is what a true block string is. So this is something that, I was very proud about, creating this spreadsheet here. Check the Q&A section after this to see. I'm going to go over the crazy details that I had of how I made this spreadsheet, but because I'm just really proud about it. I just want to brag about it, okay?